This is the Asus ROG G700, a premium full-size gaming desktop engineered completely in-house by Asus. And this is me in my house re-engineering this desktop because it felt like the right thing to do.
Welcome back to ManicMods, YouTube's home of misfit modifications mayhem. My name is Jeff. Did I do that right? I gotta get my name out more.
Today, I'll share my extensive case retrofit I've dubbed the Mini ROG G700. I'll share why I did it, provide an overview of how I did it, then, just maybe, I'm going to make you want to do it for one reason or another.
Alright, we've got a lot to cover today, so ask your question.
Bro, what?
Just build a computer to
I don't get it. Stupid. Your face is stupid.
There are two legitimate reasons you might go from buying and building your computers for 20 years to buying and building retail.
Number one, you could save a lot of money.
This is my research to build a comparable desktop with the same CPU and GPU. This list does not include Wi-Fi, case fans, or lighting, but it still costs more than the G700 that has it all. This represents the new normal. PC manufacturers subsidize the price hikes caused by SSD and GPU shortages and AI.
Sorry,
You're part of the problem, Google!
But you don't have to pay retail. I got my G700 barely used for only $1,900 on eBay. The case damage and shipping did help that deal. Don't pack in peanuts, people.
Alright, second reason you might buy and modify retail. You just saved a bunch of money and can build bigger.
I did this literally to my HP Omen after savings. A large cooler and side intake resolved its overheating issue, and it was only superseded by this Asus.
So what did the Asus need? The included SSD with it is poor, but
Other than that, it's got everything and then some. Space. It's got everything and then a lot of space.
it's great for my cat, but it's terrible for airflow. We're not just shrinking this PC today, we're fixing it. And to be completely honest, it really didn't fit under my desk anyway. We good here? Alright, let's get on with it.
To prove to you that I'm building a smaller, meaner G700, I started with a proper weigh-in. This number won't be hard to beat. The G700 weighs a staggering 35 pounds. This swap took about 4 hours. I'll give you what you need in a few minutes. If you like what I did, please like this video. Alright, a little preparation goes a long way. I'm getting ready to pull the GPU before I mark each cable. I recommend snapping some reference pictures, but I can do one better for you. Here are the 12 motherboard connections we will make and break today.
Always mind that GPU lock.
There were 4 screws mounting this GPU, 2 at the I/O and 2 at its support bracket. With that gone, it's your job to support it. Don't fuck it up. With everything unplugged from the front of the PC, we can make our way to the rear. Here we'll find the power supply in addition to the RGB fan controller. Short and sweet, mark each connector that plugs into the fan controller. I prefaced all with an X to further group them. The main connector is soldered on, but don't worry, this pigtails out to a SATA power socket, and 2 we've marked from the front, the SM bus, and fan 2, not fan 4 is marked. We can now confidently remove the fan controller. The disconnected ATX power cable is pulled, as well as the 8-pin PSU power and the 600-watt GPU power. At this point, route any cabling back to the front. Don't let this extension trip you up. Send it all home.
Just send him home. It's time to go home there, ball.
That's your home! Are you too good for your home?
Alright, the remaining cables are now ready to be pulled from the front. We will remove the power supply, in my case a light-on 850-watt gold. Returning to the front of the Asus, we are almost ready to pull its motherboard. We'll clear some way here. This is the extension we just pushed through. It plugged into LED 5 of the rear fan controller, and with it routed back to the front, we can see it connects a few LED devices. I traced one to the CPU's RGB and intentionally broke that connection. However, in review, I believe I could have kept this extension whole, but since I'm here, I will summarize that the CPU cold plate was disconnected from that RGB extension and its pump power from the motherboard. I bundled these together to simplify some things before moving on to the heat exchanger. We'll pull the radiator and fan assembly from the top of the case after removing the dust filter. As you remove the 8 screws, you'll gradually be able to lower the radiator. At this point, you could pull the block and check the pace, but I'm not touching it. I want the thermal test to stay consistent and isolate my case swap, so this cooler was not separated from the motherboard. I counted 8 motherboard screws that must be removed to uninstall the board. The I/O plate stays attached to this board, allowing the board, components, and cooler all to be removed together. You'll find the cooling hoses are long enough to avoid any pinches when combining and pulling these parts. Don't fuck it up. With that out of the way, we only have our RGB plaques left. Remove these 3 front screws before 2 more in the rear, one right here and one here. And then you can slide the first plaque out of the access hole. Finally, we can remove the front fans. The front cover has normal tabs to, open it. A total of 12 screws secure the front 3 fans, and here are their termination points.
The G700 is officially disassembled, and its main plaque is at least temporarily spared. You know, I wasn't planning on touching that plaque, I really wasn't, because I knew the moment I did, it would become a ManicMod, and I don't always have the time to produce them. So thank you Asus for enabling me, you'll find that out later. Now we're gonna flip the script, build back smaller, meaner, and cooler. Let me know what you think so far about the build below. There's also a like button I invite you to tickle. All right, let's get it. Who said you can't build a PC if you buy a pre-built PC? This case is going to make a great little brother to the Asus ROG G700. We've got the same input headers at the top, a more efficient AIO output given the Asus 240mm configuration. We've got 3 front fans, a very similar footprint but without the bloat. It's a good case. It feels rigid. I'll take this off since I'm mounting the AIO in a bit. To officially get started, we'll remove the front door. You can pull it off the post or remove the hinges, though I'm not really sure why I did because yeah, that. To keep the cooling system the same, I'll remove the included case fan. 2 thumb screws give us access to the rear, and we can finish removing this fan, which doesn't look half bad for a budget brand.
Vitro.
Not surprised given the nice case design.
Vitro.
Take a peek at our cabling. We've got a new front RGB LED plug right here, as well as the familiar front USB 2.0 HD audio and 10 gig USB-C, as well as the front panel header pinouts. The power supply always seems like a sensible start to any build, and this light-on reinstalled without a hitch. We'll tuck the cables for now so nothing gets damaged when we rotate the case to continue our build. Just like the Asus and most desktops, the front cover has those pinch reliefs to really pop it like it's hot. Pull through our bonus front RGB and install our front fans. You'll spend a little time getting alignment right, working from within the case. The front fan by the power supply is a bit of a pain in the ass, and I recommend you have a stubby on hand. But I trust we've all been through much worse. The front intake is now complete, and we'll move on to the motherboard, which I had absolutely zero fitment concerns with. It's gonna really do that. The case comes with standoffs for various board configurations, and I'll add one beneath the I/O plate, a second right here, a third, and a final fourth installed here after removing both bottom A posts. Before I installed the board, I fixed Asus's biggest mistake. I doubled the speed of the primary storage by leveling up the PCIe to version 4.0. This is my fist deep looking for answers, Flex. Rah! If you're looking at my elbow, I'm really disappointed in you. All right, let's get on with it. Keeping the cooler means we are double clutching here. It's not ideal. Don't fuck it up. I started with 2 screws to secure the motherboard. We'll come back to the rest later. Before installing the radiator, we'll want to connect the 8-pin CPU power to the motherboard. I used the top hole for this. I thought I'd try to install a radiator like this to clean up the hoses, but the cables that came out the front were too short, so I backtracked to the original configuration. When installing this radiator, keep the fan cables in front and send this RGB extension to the rear. With the additional hose slack intact, 8 screws seal the deal. This went in easier than the front intake fans, and I'm about to move on to the rear exhaust. For this exhaust fan, the fan power will run down towards the bottom of the PC. This RGB will run up through this access hole that we just used for the CPU RGB to the rear fan controller. The exhaust fan is mounted, and we're ready to make our initial connections from the rear of the PC. Right here is our front fan connections. We'll establish them one at a time. These are our front panel connections, power switch, LED, and USB. We've already connected to the CPU power. This is our new additional front RGB included with the case. And these make up the RGB extension that was left connected to the radiator that we recently passed through the front. When we remove this extension, I unplugged only the AIO's RGB, which we'll gather from the front now. This guy right here. He'll meet up with the RGB extension. Put some new tape on it for good measure before tucking all these RGB cables aside, because we're about to install their controller. The SM bus and fan 2, not fan 4, plug into the front through this hole. We can deal with that later and secure the RGB fan controller now. For that, I simply used heavy-duty Velcro. Next, I added the LED extension back to the LED 5 port. The top fan will plug into LED 2 as well as fan 2, but as before, I have one better for you. A personal invitation to you to my new merch store so you could support my small channel and look good doing it. And for a limited time, you could be my first customer. Any purchase you make directly supports future builds and productions outside my normal 9 to 5. I do appreciate your support. Even that thumbs up button does a lot for me. Let's get back to it. Right here is the pinout of the RGB controller we started before my awful sales pitch. We'll connect all but J1 and J2 at this time. Right before I added that last connector, I added these zip ties to start cleaning things up, and right after, I covered back up the fan controller. Finally, I tidied all of the right side wires before moving on to the motherboard connections. The motherboard ATX power should route through this hole.
From the case's connections, grab the USB and USB-C cables. I recommend the hole under the one we just used for the ATX power. We'll now plug in that ATX power cable as well as the blue USB 2.0 cable and the 10 gig USB-C connector. Then back at the rear, grab the front audio and panel connectors. They'll be fed out this hole along with fan 3, the bottom fan, to connect to the motherboard. No more cable routing, just managing and organized plugging, so I'll cut right to it. Here again is that connection guide to aid your remaining marked connections. If I were to call attention to one area, it would be the top right. The AIO pump and CPU opt are from the cold plate. These were shortened together before installation. The CPU fan, or exhaust fan, is also a tight fit.
Yep, you see them. Yeah, that's where we're going.
At this stage, I completed fastening the motherboard, and 8 screws later, here's a look at the final wiring. You can ignore the cable at the back. It's for my desk switch, which I'll try to demonstrate later. We've got a GPU to install. The Asus bracket, yeah, that bracket won't. The Asus bracket won't fit, bro. We'll come back to the bracket. The AIO plates were opened up and the RTX 5080 is installed into its new home. This is Asus's cable cover. I added it for now, and the cooler line should make a nice loop, which can be zip tied to the radiator. I tried a few more bracket install methods.
The best recommendation is just to skip this bracket and pick up a GPU brace.
So that's what I did and removed 3 more IO plates. This is how we look after adjustment, and we can move on to our final 3 connections. This is our new GPU support. It has an RGB input and output, but we just need the input. We'll wrap it, then install it to the Add Gen port left of the SM bus. The second to last connection is the ROG plaque. You can't build a Mini ROG without it, and mounting was easy. I drilled a single mount for the bottom. This secured the weight while the top was adhered with VHB tape. You may find a better path for this than the top. This plaque will connect to J2 of the rear fan controller. It was a bit short, so I used a shaved fan extension to lengthen it. And guess what? We've got one more cable left. You want to know what it is? Well, earlier in the build, I thought.
So maybe I could salvage this in some way. Bro.
Yeah, maybe won't cut it anymore. That controller requires the PSU plaque on J1 for the remaining LEDs to function at all. You can choose to keep it simple and salvage only this emitter. If you've been here before though, you should know I get my kicks from cramming hardware into tight places, so I'm gonna make it fit. No regrets, it assembled in even less time and is a real conversation starter.
These are the ways that gamers tense at the intersection of virtual. Who's gonna notice?
Finally, the last connection, the final plaque is plugged into J1. It's too late to fuck this up. Let's clean it and ship it. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. Fix that right now. Yeah, finally, after adjusting my GPU bracket, the final piece was adhered with VHB. We're done. And at this point, I had to admit,
It even looks better than the original.
I mean, I don't know, it's a bit subjective. Bro, that looks better than the original. It's denser. Not only does this form look better, it represents a 35% reduction in weight and size with 0 sacrifice. That means no problem for your SSD. It'll fit in more places. And since the original airflow was so mismanaged, we are about to see a significant drop in our CPU temp. 3D Mark Speedway put the original ROG at a respectable 60-degree average. Asus take note, with less empty space and more direct airflow, the Mini ROG averages 15 degrees cooler. If you have this PC and you want to give it a little treat, I've got a pro tip for you. Add tape here if you've got the original cooler, so most of your fresh air doesn't immediately escape. And hey, it would seem to me you enjoy seeing full-size hardware stuffed into tight cabinets, so I've got one for you. My Podjams TV retrofit will delight. Hit this video a link to learn more, and if you like the production, please like the production. I'll leave my coffee and store links there below if you'd like to support my journey further. I do appreciate you all here. That's it today. Hope to see you in the next build. My name is Jeff.